Under Liberal leadership, everything seems to be falling apart for Canada as a whole, and then even especially for the Liberal Party, for the Liberal government. What Trump has done with the tariffs, with the negotiations, and the internal drama that's happening and the pressure towards Mark Carney, it's really not looking good for the future of Mark Carney's reputation as well as the Liberal government. So we're going to be taking a look at a lot of things. We're going to be taking a look at American officials commenting on what's happening to Canada, the art of the deal that Trump is doing. We're taking a look at some Canadian politicians that have very interesting words to say about our current state of where we are. And of course, elbows up. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I really want to encourage everyone, 60% of you guys that are watching are not subscribed. Reoccurring viewers, you might not be logged in on your TV, your phone, your smart home device, whatever it is, just log in, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. That's all I'm asking for before we get tariffed to death. And we got to talk, speaking of tariffs, we got to talk about protecting ourselves. Yeah, there's protecting yourselves in the real world, but there's also protecting yourselves online. Most of what we do in today's world is digital. And well, what better way than to talk about today's sponsor? This video is brought to you by today's sponsor, Private Internet Access. If you're fed up with government censorship and the government tracking and then selling your data, well, boy, oh boy, do I have a fix for you. Private Internet Access, my go-to VPN, is the best way to cloak yourself so that you can browse the internet anonymously. Also unlocks a whole bunch of censored news here in Canada, which is the Liberals' quota. In addition to that, when you have Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, it allows you to access content that is restricted by this country. So you can use American Netflix, French Netflix, Italian Netflix, whatever it is that you want. There are so many benefits to private internet access, but my favorite is the fact that it works on so many different devices. One subscription protects unlimited amount of devices at the same time. You can also change your IP address to more than 91 countries around the world. If you use my link down below in the description or the pinned comment below, you'll get 83% off private internet access today. Alternatively, you could go to piavpn.com/sunshine to get the exact same discount. Thank you, Private Internet Access, for sponsoring today's video. So here we go. Let's get into this video. We're going to start off with what the BC Premier has to say about these new Trump tariffs and the state of Canada.
Another blow to Canada-U.S. relations. President Donald Trump sending a letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney, warning that next month the Americans will charge Canada 35% on Canadian products coming into the country. If Canada retaliates with tariffs, Trump wrote that number will be added on to the 35%.
It was sent yesterday. They called. I think it was fairly well received, but it's what we need. So we'll see what happens.
Prime Minister Mark Carney responding overnight, writing, "The Canadian government has steadfastly defended our workers and businesses. We will continue to work towards the revised deadline of August 1st. While not the elbows up approach some critics would like to see, Ottawa argues it is."
Canada is the only country on earth, along with China, that has imposed so many counter tariffs. So we have had already a very strong response.
BC Premier David Eby also reacting, writing on social media, quote, "The letter is flailing and factually incorrect. Other F words come to mind." Speaking to reporters in Prince George Friday, his message was simple.
We'll be coordinating our response to any tariffs that are imposed by the United States with the federal government.
For Trump, he said tariffs are partly due to Canada's failure to stop fentanyl from getting into the country, while Carney says they have made vital progress. So we're here at the Canada-U.S. border, and it was just over a week ago that the Manhattan Institute found that large Canadian border seizures are relatively rare, with only 1% of fentanyl tablets, capsules, and pills being seized from coming from up north.
You're going to see this 35% tariff start to melt away because the USMC is already exempt.
SFU economist Lindsay Meredith believes this is another negotiation tactic as the two sides work towards a trade deal.
Canadians aren't going to fall for this too many times. You keep calling tariffs. You've called wolf way too many times. Guess what? It doesn't work anymore.
Now all eyes are on Ottawa and Washington as the August 1st.
Yeah, see, I think having that mentality and saying, well, we just don't believe you and you're not going to destroy us the way you say you are is very much the wrong mentality to have. We've seen countless nations say that they are not bowing down to Trump. They aren't going to play his games within moments, days, sometimes weeks, never months. Every single one of those nations turns around and apologizes to Trump and then bows down to him to some capacity. America is not to be messed with. I'm not saying that we should just do everything that he's saying, but in a good negotiation, there's, what the other side wants and what you want, and finding some good middle ground. And what Mark Carney's been doing to find that middle ground is not good. For crying out loud, the guy tried to impose a digital service tax. Now, every single time I talk about this topic, oh, you're just an American shill. Oh, you don't even like Canada. That's not true at all. I love Canada. Born and raised here. I want to stay in Canada. I love the land. I love the people. I love our culture, even though it's increasingly harder and harder to really figure out what exactly our culture is. I want Canada to stay Canada for as long as Canada could possibly sustain maintaining Canadian status. But at the same time, good negotiations require a good leader, which we do not currently have. So now we're going to take a look at American officials and what they are saying about Trump's art of the deal.
On Canada, European Union, and Mexico. Why now? What's going on?
Well, I think that we've got a deadline that's coming up in early August. And the thing about President Trump, if you go back and look at his history, that he became one of the most successful, if not the most successful businessman in the 20th century because he was able to squeeze everything out of every deal that he made. And right now we've got that guy who wrote The Art of the Deal, making deals for the American people. And we've got to see where the dust settles. The bottom line is that he's seen some sketches of deals that have been negotiated with Howard Lutnick and the rest of the trade team. And the president thinks that deals need to be better. And to basically put a line in the sand, he sent these letters out to folks, and we'll see how it works out.
I mean, for all the talk of deals, I mean, there was talk of 90 deals in 90 days, and then the president actually said 200 deals at one point. And we've really only seen 2.5 deals. We've seen the UK, we've seen Vietnam, and a kind of a framework on China.
In addition to that, they are also saying that America needs to start producing more copper because there's too much of a reliance on other countries. Here we go.
But let me move on. Let me ask you about the 50% tariff that the president has imposed on copper imports. Copper, of course, is a widely used in construction, industrial manufacturing, cars, mobile phones, and the like. This is what the Wall Street Journal had to say about these tariffs. Mr. Trump is going to make U.S. firms pay 50% more for a vital metal while they wait 5 or more years for U.S. sourcing. How does making it more expensive to build aircraft, ships, and ammunition promote national security? This is national insecurity. What's your response to the Wall Street Journal?
Right. The bottom line is that if there is a time of war, then we need to have the metals that we need to produce American weapons. And copper is a key component in many American weapon sets. And so as we look forward to the threats that America faces, the president decided that we have plenty of copper in the U.S., but not enough copper production. And that's why he's taken this strong step.
But are you concerned about the effect of higher copper prices before American manufacturing can get up to speed?
The fact is that effect that you're just discussing is something that you mentioned that economists said were going to be coming all year, these effects, and inflation is way, way down. In fact, inflation in the U.S. is right about the same level as it is in Europe.
Okay.
And so the tariffs have worked the way that we said. And so I guess the expectation would be that the countries and the people that are dumping into the U.S. would bear most of this tariff.
Now, I agree that a country should be having less reliancy on other countries. But that doesn't mean that we shift our reliance off of America and move it to Europe. That's quite literally the opposite of what we should be doing. We should be trying to rely more on ourselves, but also bettering our trade relationship, our trade negotiations, just our ongoing everything with America. We should be focusing on that, not to Europe, because we've proven, or sorry, not we, but it's been proven that no matter what Canada says or does, Trump has the final trump card, which is national security. When it came to fentanyl at the border, even though Canada is not really having a lot of fentanyl that's at least been caught crossing from Canada into the American border, national security. Even if we had one sminy little crack pipe go through the border, national security, national security, national security. The reason why that word is so important is it gives him access to do things without going to Congress. It gives him those types of emergency kind of powers. And so when it comes to Canada, bordering America, deciding, you know what, we're going to trade with Europe, which isn't inherently that bad of an idea. As a supplement to trading with America, we shouldn't be replacing our trade with America to Europe. Trump can then say, national security. You don't believe me? Just wait and see how this eventually turns out. But that's my opinion, folks. I would love to know yours. Next, we're taking a look at Mark Carney's controversy of a lot of his companies, over 103 assets that he's having a conflict of interest with. So the clip is posted on Mark Nixon's X page saying nothing but cash and real estate promise. The reality is that it's 103 assets that require recusal. 99.7% of them are out of the country. Blind trust? More like blindfolding Canada. Here's the clip.
I own nothing now. I came into public life at a time of crisis. I put my hand up because of the crisis, because of what's represented by that bridge, what's represented by the threats to these good men and women of Unifor and their colleagues across southwestern Ontario and across Canada. I came in. What I've done is put all my affairs in order, well in advance. I own nothing but cash and personal real estate. So, and that's not going to change. In public life, that's not going to change. It's actually quite straightforward.
So then, just to be clear, then, going forward, you have no potential equity stake, no potential stock options, or any other potential future payments that you currently anticipate could come from either Strike or Brookfield.
So what I have is cash, personal real estate, and they're assets all those assets were divested into a blind trust, which is managed by a trustee. And it literally means exactly what it says. I don't know what's in it.
So again, I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments about that. Mark Carney's entire brand is transparency, is doing what's right for Canada. And it turns out that he's just in constant conflicts of interest, which is never a good spot to be in. Next up, we're taking a look here at Canada's military defense and how Canada is planning on purchasing a bunch of unmanned drones. Let's take a look.
Reports suggest that Canada could purchase a fleet of unmanned aerial combat drones in the hopes of bolstering its incoming F-35 fighter jet fleet. Government documents obtained by the Canadian press show the Department of National Defence is researching options to acquire the tech. And while the exact cost is unknown, estimates suggest it could go as high as $16 billion. Canada has never deployed unmanned aerial combat drones alongside fighter jets. And with me now is retired Major General David Fraser. General, thank you as always for joining us.
Roger, good to be with you.
Let's get your thoughts on this idea of the drones, up to $16 billion worth of drones that would work with the F-35s.
Well, the F-35 is the last manned fighter or aircraft we're ever going to fly in that category. And having these drones is just the next step to where the technology is going to go. And from the safety of our men and women flying aircraft, this is what we need to do. We'll let machines do the dangerous stuff and let the men and women do the safer things. So really from a technology point of view and a safety point of view, and also when we look at the North, this is where we have to be.
I guess this begs the question, do we need the F-35s then?
Yeah, right now you do need the F-35 because these drones are actually tethered to the F-35. But it's the next step, and as you know, there are upgrades to these drones and whatnot. Eventually, the F-35 will be phased out. But for the time being, you need the F-35. No other airplane right now can do what the F-35 and these drones can do.
And is this proven technology that we'd be looking at, or is it untested?
Well, early testing, I would say. The Australians have, essentially a couple of versions out. The Americans have been testing these for a number of years, but it's early days with the testing. But again, if we're not in the game, and once we decide we want to get into the game, it'll take us too much money and time to get back into this to be classified as being a credible partner.
Now, there's a personnel shortage, I guess, in the armed forces. Would this ease that because we wouldn't need as many people?
Well, I wouldn't say it's going to ease it. These things don't fly by themselves in the sense that ground crews and people that are backup. But if you are a Canadian looking for a high-tech type of job, this will certainly interest you in joining something that is, high-tech It's sexy in the sense of, you're going to be doing something that you can work with for the rest of your life. So I think it's a good news story for retention and attraction.
And outside of it, would we be buying any of this from within Canada, or is this all American or European purchases?
Well, in fact, there will be an awful lot of spin-offs for Canadian industries with this, the high-tech industries in Boeing, and there's another one, General Atomics make this right now. And so I think there's an awful lot of possibilities for economic benefit for Canada.
Okay, and I guess the question, do you think this will become a reality before we go?
I think eventually it will become a reality. I mean, the fact that the Air Force is studying it right now is good news. The fact we've got a prime minister who wants to put more emphasis on defense spending does make this more plausible than it was with the previous prime minister.
Do you think that this is a good business and defense strategy? Do you think that we can afford this? Do you agree with this type of move of buying unmanned drones? Let me know down in the comments. Personally, I think that investing in our defense is rather good, even though sometimes it skirts the line as to we can't really afford it. That could be true, but also we might not live if we don't have a defense. So would you rather us spend money that we don't necessarily have on defense or us be invaded? Personally, I would rather spend money on defense and then find cuts elsewhere. But again, that's not me agreeing per se with Mark Carney. That's just me wanting to put more money into our defense. Next, we're taking a look at what a previous member of parliament has to say about these ongoing trade negotiations and tariff war with Trump. Peter McKay, who hasn't really made many media appearances in a while, has a special guest appearance on CTV, and he had this to say about the matter.
Joining us now is Peter McKay, former Foreign Affairs Minister. Mr. McKay, good to see you. Welcome.
Pleasure to be with you, Renee.
So, in your experience as Foreign Affairs Minister, have you ever seen negotiations like this with the goalposts constantly shifting?
In short, absolutely not. This is really unprecedented, uncharted waters. And what we are seeing with the president and his administration makes it extremely difficult, and not just for Canada, but for all countries. He's issued letters as recently as today to some 20 countries announcing new tariffs that are very punitive, that are going to cause a lot of disruptions in supply chains, and the whole reliability and predictability factor in trade has become almost unachievable under this president. So in the short time that he's been there, it's really turned the world on its head when it comes to trade.
Certainly. Now, do you believe the Canadian government can get a deal by August 1st? What needs to happen to reach it?
Well, as you referenced it just keeps changing. We've had August deadlines now in the last 48 hours. Prior to that, it was in July. Going back to the G7 at Kananaskis, it was different. And so there is ferocious negotiation happening behind the scenes, to be sure. But much of the rhetoric, I think, is becoming a little bit more difficult for Canadians to sort out. The elbows up, counter tariffs, that simply isn't true. There is important discussions happening between officials, but much of this is entirely predicated on what the president thinks and says on any given day. And so new tariffs, punitive ones, new rates, 35% now, which would have a huge impact across many industries. And as we know, aluminum, steel, our ag sector, the auto sector, all of this is hanging in the balance until such time as we're able to get a firm deal. And then I'm quick to add, Renee, even if we get a firm deal, which we had with the Canada-Mexico-U.S. trade agreement, that can be ripped up on a whim by this president.
Mm-hmm. Trump is placing higher tariffs on his biggest trading partners and, frankly, his friends like Canada and Mexico. How much of an impact do you think this trade war is having on the relationship between Canada and the U.S., and is it irreparable?
Well, a great point. And I don't think anything is irreparable. I mean, you're going to see administrations and presidents and prime ministers come and go. But this is very much eroding the relationship, business to business, industry to industry, office to office. I think the Canadian people, the American people, our Mexican colleagues They want this relationship to work. And let's not forget, this has been a highly successful, profitable, and growth agenda for North America. And that's what is so unfortunate about all of this. We just want to get back to some form of normality where we have trusted friends and allies. This has implications across other important parts of the North American relationship, and most importantly, security. The president keeps pointing to fentanyl and fentanyl importation from Canada. It's 0.2%. He talks about, of course, illegal immigration. Again, it's minuscule. And in fact, one could argue that there's more illegal contraband and illegal immigration coming our way, as opposed to, as he's described it. So we need to get back to a fact-based discussion where there is an agreed-upon statement of facts. And I think that's where officials play this important role, and so that it's not being negotiated in public, quite frankly.
I personally think what's happening right now is a lot of people are discovering across all political spectrums that it's not really changing. Like Trudeau era of all those politicians and liberal government priding themselves on being able to properly negotiate with Trump isn't panning out. Not the way that it should, and certainly not the way that they've branded themselves as being capable of doing. I mean, for crying out loud, for a brief moment earlier this year, Chrystia Freeland was priding herself and campaigning herself in her bid as prime minister or leader of the Liberal Party, that she was referred to by Trump as the Trump whisperer or the killer, right? The savage, or whatever the heck Trump gave her a nickname for. And now we're finding out that her boss, Mark Carney, is nowhere near that title, which tells me that Freeland doesn't earn that title either. So yeah, good job, Canada. At least some of the elbows are still up. I don't know. I'm kind of over it at this point. I feel like we're set up to fail on so many different ways. And people have made arguments publicly that Canada will only really change once we hit rock bottom. So let me pass the question off to you to close up this video. Are we at rock bottom right now, or do we have further to go? I'd love to know what you guys think down below. That, ladies and gentlemen, concludes the video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, it'd be super awesome for you guys to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.